The Rangers lost a series against the Tampa Bay Rays in some frustrating fashion, but it looks like they might have solved their biggest problem, but possibly have a new biggest problem. We're getting into all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Today is Monday, June 12th, and your Rangers are 41-23, still alone atop the AL West with a 5-game lead over the Astros, despite losing this series to the Rays. Now, this was a frustrating way to lose a series, but it was just such a fun series. Honestly, I kind of want to provide some perspective at first on this series. The Rangers haven't had this big of a single series in the regular season in a long time. I think it was the pregame show before this first game where Steve Buechele said this was the biggest regular season series for the Rangers since 2015 against the Angels, where the Rangers it was the final games of the regular season. The Rangers needed to win, I believe it was 2 games, at least needed to win on game 162 in order to clinch the division, or I think they might have missed the playoffs at that point, but the Rangers did clinch on 162, and this wasn't quite as big as that, but this was a really fun series. There weren't any national TV games outside of, I think Saturday was an MLB Network game, but these are the 2 teams with the best records in all of baseball heading in. They were absolute juggernauts, and the Rangers kind of got it handed to them a little bit in the first game. Not a whole lot going right for them offensively, only 3 hits for them, and all of them were solo home runs, 2 of them by Leody Taveras, his first ever career multi-home run game. Big day for him, his 4th and 5th homers of the season, and then in the 9th inning, just for good measure, Josh Young added his 13th home run of the season, extending his lead over all American League rookies, and not a whole lot of walks either, just 3 walks for them, one of them by Leody Taveras, so only 6 base runners for the Rangers in this one, and half of them were solo home runs. A decent outing from Andrew Heaney. I know I say decent, 3 earned runs, 5 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, a couple of walks, and 1 home run. This is a Rays team that absolutely dominates lefties. Like we saw what they did to Martin Perez on Sunday, and him going through 5 innings and keeping the Rangers in this one. It was a fairly close, it was an in-reach game. 2 of the home runs the Rangers got were in the 8th and 9th inning. There wasn't a whole lot going against Tyler Glasnow, who looked absolutely fantastic. And in case you didn't know, he looks like actor Cillian Murphy. Just in case, apparently the world is just now realizing this, even though he's looked like Cillian Murphy for the longest time. I think it's just a specific screenshot of him in those fantastic Devil Rays uniforms. Just a really fun opener in this one. The Rangers just were not able to get anything going off of him. He's definitely someone who, if the Rangers faced off against the Rays in the playoffs, they're going to see him probably twice. They're probably going to see Sunday starter Shane McClanahan twice, and they might end up seeing Taj Bradley, who they saw pretty well in the Saturday win. And the Rangers really got to that rookie, especially Corey Seager. Corey Seager got to everyone in that one. This was maybe the best offensive game of Corey Seager's career in the regular season. 5 hits. All of the hits were absolutely stung. The softest one was 98 miles an hour off the bat, and I believe 4 out of the 5 were at least 100 miles an hour or more. Had a double, had a home run, had 4 RBIs, and 2 runs scored for him in this one. Just an absolutely electric day from the Rangers shortstop, kind of showing after that rough first game where the Rangers bullpen really got beat up. Really just Spencer Howard got beat up pretty badly in his first game since coming back up, I believe beginning about a week ago, whenever the first DeGrom news dropped on Monday of last week. So yeah, about 7 days ago. But still, this Rangers offense bounced back against a really tough rookie. Taj Bradley was one of the top-rated pitching prospects in all of baseball, and he's been really good this season, but the Rangers tagged him pretty well. It didn't matter who was on the mound. The Rangers have gotten to pretty much everybody that they've faced off against this year. They also got a couple of runs off of Beeks, the lefty reliever who the Rays brought in relief of Taj Bradley. Bradley went 3 2/3 innings, 5 runs, 4 of them were earned, 4 walks as well. Had not been walking a whole lot of batters, but the Rangers were very, very patient, showed off why their offense is so incredibly good, so incredibly deep and talented. We saw a lot of that this weekend. I was kind of surprised that the Friday lineup was the one that was shut out so handily, because that was the A1 lineup. I mean, that is the group of guys who I think are 1 through 9 the best in all of baseball, the deepest and most talented, and I think most versatile in the most situations. That's one of the things I didn't realize about this Rays offense until you go and face them and see two completely different lineups when they face a righty versus lefty. That's the thing that I think the Rangers offense has the edge in. They have a lot of guys who can hit the opposite-handed pitchers well, especially at the top of their lineup with their lefties with Corey Seager and Nathaniel Lowe. Both those guys can hit lefties really well. That was a thing that the Rays didn't think Nathaniel Lowe could do. They didn't think he could hit velocity. They didn't think that he could hit against lefties well, and he hits very, very well against lefties. One of the best left-on-left hitters in all of Major League Baseball. I kind of wish that Nathaniel Lowe could have gotten a home run off of Shane McClanahan, who is a lefty, who does throw with velocity. He's still not elite against velocity, but he's fine, and he hits lefties actually very well. So that would have been a nice little, hey guys, I'm actually pretty good, and you guys probably shouldn't have traded me so that I could actually play with my brother as opposed to playing against him, which they did for the first time on Saturday. A fun little moment of Josh finally getting on first base. He doubled in his first at-bat, kind of ran right past his older brother. We didn't get to see any of the pickoff throws. I think Nathaniel made a comment about maybe wanting to swat him with his glove if he was on first base for long, but he did not stay there. There was a fun little moment on Bally Sports Southwest Twitter that they did share of Josh Lowe making some funny faces behind his brother at first base, which I would absolutely be doing in all scenarios if I was in that position. If I was behind my older brother, I'd be making goofy faces and just trying to distract him, being an absolute goofball. But a fun moment for the brothers Lowe and the parents and the whole family and friends. I think there were 90 people there to go watch those two face off for the first time against each other in a game. But still, bringing it back to the big perspective on this Rangers team, this is their first series loss since mid-May, and when they lost on Friday, that was the first time they had lost consecutive games since, I believe, April. It's been a long time. This Rangers team has been so freaking good. In series this year, the Rangers are 15-5-1. Let that sink in. 15 series wins, 5 series losses, 1 series split. That's nuts. That's absolutely bonkers. This is the first time the Rangers had lost a series since the middle of May, and the only time that the Rangers have lost multiple series in a row was the second and third series of the year, at home against Baltimore and then on the road against the Cubs. That's the only time the Rangers have lost back-to-back series in the entire year. That's how good this team has been. It is a little frustrating, and for some perspective of why Bochy rested literally everybody in that Wednesday game, the Rangers just started a stretch on Friday of 30 games in 31 days before the All-Star break. That is a brutal stretch, absolutely brutal stretch. So getting those guys multiple days off in a row is a big deal, and I think that was the right move, even though they did basically have no shot of winning that game. Well, actually they did have a shot of winning that game because John Gray was absolutely incredible in his complete game, not quite shutout, but still, Rangers are maintaining the big perspective. This was a frustrating series, but again, it's the freaking Rays. They are incredible. They beat everybody. They beat everybody down. The Rangers were never really totally out of the series at any point. I mean, the Friday game did feel a little one-sided with how well Glasnow was pitching and how much the Rangers offense wasn't doing much of anything. But for the most part, the Rangers were very much in the series, especially in Sunday's game. They had the tying run at the plate in the top of the ninth inning, even though they were down 4 runs. Ezekiel Duran does ground into a double play, but nice to see the Rangers work a rally in there after being pretty much shut out in the second half of the game by Shane McClanahan. After that rough 3-run third inning for him, he looked absolutely nails and like one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in all of baseball. But the Rangers still got him for 3, and that is not something that happens a whole lot to him at home or really anywhere, and the Rangers should feel pretty freaking good about that and pretty freaking good about where they are, especially when it looks like the Rangers might have fixed their biggest problem, which is their bullpen. We're going to look at what the bullpen did this weekend and why I am really encouraged by what they're doing so far. But first, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle, which is why every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know if the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million different parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers a first listen every single day. On Tuesday's show, I'll be breaking down why Dane Dunning has been so effective this year. Hopefully, he's still effective on Monday, so I don't look stupid doing that. But the Rangers take on the Angels this week and catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, this weekend's bullpen, it may not look as impressive when you factor in the Spencer Howard of it all, but for the most part, this bullpen was absolutely incredible this weekend, especially Josh Sborz, who I have been a believer in for, I think about a week is when I made my official declaration of being a Josh Sborz believer. I wish that I had taken that stance a little bit earlier. But Josh Sborz has been incredible, and here's what the bullpen has done so far this weekend. In 3 innings on Wednesday, they allowed 4 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. Not super great. Saturday, 2 2/3 innings, 0 hits, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. Much, much better. And then on Sunday, in relief of Martin Perez in his rough outing, 4 2/3 innings, 1 hit, 0 walks, 5 strikeouts, and that 1 hit was immediately erased on a caught stealing and a great throw by Jonah Heim. You take out what Spencer Howard did, which was get 1 out and allow 4 hits, 4 runs, and I believe he also had the 1 walk as well. You take out the Spencer Howard overall. This weekend, the Rangers bullpen combined for 10 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. And again, like I said, that 1 hit was immediately erased by Jonah Heim on a caught stealing. That's really freaking good. And that's against the best offense in all of baseball. That is a good bullpen. That is not just a mediocre bullpen getting by. That is a straight up good bullpen. They got great performances from Josh Sborz. They got great performances from Jose Leclerc, especially on Sunday. That was a huge outing by Jose Leclerc, going 2 2/3 innings. But Josh Sborz has been absolutely incredible this season. Like, just honestly incredible. His expected ERA makes his actual ERA look much, much better. His actual ERA is at 3.67 or 3.63 on the year. His expected ERA is in the top 2% of the league at 2.01. His strikeout rate, his whiff rate, is in the 100th percentile of baseball. There is nobody better at getting swings and misses in all of Major League Baseball than Josh Sborz. Yeah, that's right. Josh Sborz, his fastball velocity, top 10% of baseball, strikeout rate, top 3%, expected slugging, expected barrel percentage, expected batting average. All of those, the top 4% of baseball, most of those in the top 2 or 3%. He's still walking guys in the 39th percentile, not getting a whole lot of spin on his curveball, and the chase rate is only in the 68th percentile. But still, he's getting a lot of swings and misses. He is being very, very effective. And by the end of the season, he might just be the Rangers closer. It might even take till the end of the season. It might be another week or 2 or month of this. And he is going out there as the Rangers closer instead of Will Smith. I think that is a very real possibility and even a likelihood. I mean, he came in there in relief of Nathan Eovaldi, who didn't have his best outing on Saturday. The Rangers said it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Eovaldi, we got you. They scored him 6 runs the first 4 innings. He allowed 4 runs in the bottom of that 4th inning, but he was still able to battle, going 6 1/3 innings, striking out 6, did walk 3, which I believe is the most he has walked this year, and did allow a home run, which is a real rarity for him. But this Rays lineup, especially at home, they will get to anybody. But Josh Sborz comes in a big moment. He is the only one who allowed the walk this weekend, but still an inning and 2/3 with 3 strikeouts in some it felt pretty high leverage situations at that moment. But still, really, really nice stuff from him. It was a 4-run game, but still, with this Rays offense, no lead feels safe. And Sborz was fantastic in that outing. He has been honestly fantastic in his last several outings. In the month of June, he's got 3 appearances, 5 1/3 innings, a 0 ERA and 9 strikeouts, just 1 walk. Those are 3 appearances, including 2 perfect innings against Seattle with 2 strikeouts, 1 2/3 innings perfect baseball against the Cardinals with 4 strikeouts, and then 1 2/3 innings against Tampa Bay with 3 strikeouts and 1 walk. That is incredible stuff from him. And you add Baltimore in there, his last 4 appearances, he has not allowed a run. Did have a couple of rough outings against Pittsburgh and against Atlanta, but outside of that, there's only been, if you look at May, there's only been 3 outings since the month of May that he has allowed any runs at all. He has been very consistent for the Rangers. He has been what the Rangers have needed, and the Rangers gave him a long leash. It's been a long time of them saying, we're not quite sure if this guy is going to be the guy in the pen or a guy in the pen, because he had missed so badly in 2-strike counts, and that was really burning him. But the stuff was always there. You could always see it was just there. And now it seems like he's finally turning that corner into a guy with a lot of potential to a guy who is really freaking good and getting results on the diamond and on the mound. It is just a really nice thing to see someone like that panning out, who the Rangers gave so many opportunities. And I at the beginning of the season, I gotta say, I was not a Josh Sborz believer. I was in the camp that, all right, this guy has had plenty of chances so many different times, and it just has not been there. You just might as well go ahead and cut bait with him and just don't worry about it. But the Rangers didn't, because the Rangers front office is smarter than me. They have more information, and they are just, they're smarter. And they were right to not cut bait with Josh Sborz, because he has been absolutely electric. And Jose Leclerc, his outing on Sunday was absolutely massive, as was pretty much everybody in that pen on Sunday. They got to see Yerry Rodriguez come in, who was called up after Spencer Howard was sent down, which I do have to make a comment on that, because I'm really frustrated with the Rangers' decision to do this. Bruce Bochy made that comment that, before Spencer Howard actually got into a game, he said that he hadn't pitched a whole lot. He literally only had 2 rehab appearances before he was called up to the big leagues, which I thought was not quite enough for how much time he had missed. Turns out I was right, because when he got into a game, he got absolutely shellacked by this Rays offense. But Bruce Bochy said that, oh no, he'll have some time to sort himself out. It won't just be that one bad outing. That was after the Friday game where the Rangers lost and Spencer Howard got lit up for those 4 runs in a third of an inning. And then literally the next day, the Rangers sent him down for Yerry Rodriguez. And Bochy said, well, he just wasn't quite right yet. They're going to go stretch him out a little bit, and I think they're going to stretch him out as a starter, which I think is a terrible idea. I like the idea of Spencer Howard, bullpen guy. The Rangers have given him a long leash. Maybe it's a Josh Sborz situation where, they're smarter than me, and they know that this guy really has that potential. We've seen him for so many starts and in so many different scenarios with the Rangers at the major league level, and he just has not had very much consistency at all, or really much success at all with the Rangers at the big league level. It's been frustrating, but I'm talking about good bullpen performances, and Jose Leclerc deserves a huge round of applause for 2 2/3 innings of scoreless baseball on Sunday. Kept the Rangers in it. This was a close game. He had a pair of strikeouts as well. Grant Anderson looked really good in his 1 inning of work. Yerry Rodriguez got a couple of strikeouts, looked really good in his inning of work as well. Just really nice stuff from this Rangers bullpen all weekend long, keeping the Rangers in it. The Rangers were able to rally in that 9th inning because this bullpen didn't allow a single run. They maybe should have been in there a little bit earlier on Martin Perez. I still don't think his outing is as bad as it looks. I know he was getting hit hard, but a lot of those hard hit balls were on the ground. We're going to talk a little bit more about concerns with this Rangers rotation in the 3rd segment, but this bullpen is looking much better. I don't know that Yerry Rodriguez is going to get to stick in the big leagues for very long, because the Rangers are having Joe Barlow. He will be eligible to return from his kidney stone stint on the IL on Tuesday, so I don't think that Yerry is going to stay in this big league pen for very long. They also did get, I do need to mention John King, the guy who I trashed pretty heavily when talking about the bullpen, or I don't know, very heavily. I just said I was out on him, but he had a really great performance on the Friday game. 2 2/3 innings of perfect baseball, 1 strikeout for him against this Rays offense, who gobbled up every lefty that they saw outside of him and Will Smith this weekend. They got to every single one of those lefties that the Rangers threw out there. But credit to him for those 2 2/3 innings. The Rangers needed it. Again, like I said, they're in this big long stretch of 30 games in 31 days. So every long outing by the bullpen when the starter's only able to go 5 innings or less than 5 innings, as was the case on Sunday, is a huge thing for this Rangers team. They need something out of everybody on this roster because they are contending, because they are so freaking good. Every single one of these games feels magnified. And it might be time to take a look, a magnifying glass on this Rangers rotation, and especially Martin Perez, because if he's a problem, then that could be a big problem for the Rangers. Coming up, we're going to look at if the Rangers really need to worry about Martin Perez, or if they can just hold pat and stay calm with this Rangers rotation. But first, this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every day. On Wednesday's show, I'll break down John Gray's importance to this Rangers rotation. The Rangers take on the Angels this week. You can catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, Martin Perez had a really rough start on Sunday. Just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about him, and he's had some pretty rough starts 2 of the last 3 times out. Against Detroit, he really got rocked. 6 runs that were all earned in 4 2/3 innings for him. He also had a really rough outing against the Angels in that Sunday series finale where the Rangers were still able to win because they dropped, I think, 13 runs against the Angels, and he only went 3 2/3 innings, allowed 7 runs. But he's had some big bad blow-up starts, and that was not the case for him at all last year. The Rangers did spend a lot of money on him in the rotation. I get that he is making more than he probably should, more than I think he would have in free agency, but you got to look at that in context. Yes, the Rangers did spend $19.6 million to keep Martin Perez with the qualifying offer. They had to do that. There was no other option. We all saw how bad this Rangers rotation was last year. It was awful. It was just straight up awful. You had a lot of Spencer Howard outings. You had a lot of Glenn Otto outings, and no shade to them. If those guys are... Glenn Otto was at one point the Rangers' basically number 3 starter. And if your number 3 starter is Glenn Otto, again, no offense to him, he did a really good job being asked to probably do more than he was capable of, and he did okay. But you're not in a great spot, and that's why the Rangers lost 94 games last year. This year, Martin Perez was brought in to be maybe the number 3, maybe the number 4. And you kind of expected a little bit of regression, but this year it has been really rough. And I do want to give him some credit because he was pitching mostly like he wanted to. He just was not getting the calls, and that is a huge thing for Martin Perez. He's not missing a whole lot middle. He doesn't have a whole lot of swing and miss stuff, and yeah, the margins are pretty fine when you do that, but he was missing just off the plate and just out of the strike zone, which is where he lives. If he gets an expanded zone, then those balls become strikes. Those hitters counts become pitchers counts, and the hitters are forced to expand the zone, make weak contact, and get a lot of ground ball outs. And that's how he made his money last year. That is why he was so good last year. He was a deserved all-star last year. But coming into this game, he had a 3.97 ERA in 12 starts, 68 innings. Decent stuff. His walks went down. His home runs are up a little bit, and he is getting hit a little bit harder, 10.2 hits per 9 heading into this one. But still, this wasn't something to freak out about. Now, with this kind of an outing, it's very easy to just be super reactionary and think, oh my gosh, this guy is terrible. Now the Rangers need to go make a trade for a starting pitcher. And I did do an episode on Friday highlighting 5 starting pitchers the Rangers could trade for, but I also did mention in there that it's going to cost a lot to go get them. I didn't even mention hypothetical prospect tolls to go get any of those guys, but I don't think the Rangers are getting someone who is a mid-rotation starter without giving up one of Ezekiel Duran, Evan Carter, Jack Leiter, Owen White. Those I think are their top 4 guys, and I just don't think that's worth it. I know the Rangers are on one this year, and the Rangers are getting playing out of their mind from offensively from the top of their rotation in Eovaldi and John Gray, and man, this DeGrom injury being out for at least 12 months and a decent chunk of next year is what that includes, then that really sets them back. And there's going to be a lot of different teams that are needing to go for starting pitching. And the Rangers really, they have a deep farm system, but they have a lot of top guys at the top end that I think they're going to really regret if they have to give up one of those 4 guys that I mentioned for a mid-rotation starter. Now, I don't think Evan Carter is going to be given up for a mid-rotation starter. I think he's off the table. I think Duran might just be untouchable at this point, as I think is Josh Young. I think those three guys are pretty much untouchable. And it's going to really hurt if Jack Leiter continues this and figures it out for somebody else, and you gave him up for a guy who ends up being worse than him. That is going to be really frustrating, especially with the injuries to Kumar Rocker, or I guess just the injury to Kumar Rocker. It's just the Rangers are going to need to develop young, controllable starting pitching at some point, and one of Owen White and Jack Leiter is the Rangers' best hope at this point. I thought maybe at some point it would be Cole Winn, but I just can't even think about that. And maybe Cody Bradford ends up being a fine back end of the rotation guy, but I don't think that he's coming up and replacing Martin Perez. I just don't think that. I think the Rangers just need to trust Martin Perez to figure it out and to get right, because he's had some really good starts this year. He really has. I mean, his last start before this one, 7 innings of 0 earned runs, just 3 hits and 1 walk, 5 strikeouts against a very, very good Cardinals lineup, full of it with a lot of righties who really, really mashed lefties. That was the case with this Tampa Bay lineup, and for the most part, I know he was getting hit hard, but a lot of those hard hits were on the ground. Really, only one of them was in the air, and that was the 3-run home run by Wander Franco, who is probably the best player in all of baseball right now. If it's not him, it's probably Ronald Acuna Jr., or maybe it's just Shohei Ohtani and we're overthinking it, or it's Aaron Judge, or maybe it's Corey Seager. But still, I don't think there's a lot of shame in this one, and I think that the spiraling over one bad outing against literally the best team in baseball, who does this to absolutely everybody, I think it's a big overreaction. Now, if you look at the big picture, and you look at who the Rangers' number 3 starter is, if it's not Martin Perez, then it's Andrew Heaney. If it's not Andrew Heaney, then it's Dane Dunning. And I think that's where you start to get in a little bit of a question. You can get away with that in the regular season, and as long as you're 3 through 5 or 3 through 6 guys, because I think Cody Bradford's going to get at least one start, if not more, in this stretch of 30 games in 31 days, just to kind of give this rotation a breather, which they will most desperately need, because if they have another injury to the starting rotation, then things get really, really hairy. But still, I think that Martin Perez is going to bounce back. I really do. I am a believer in Martin Perez, and I believe that he can be a number 3 in this rotation. I mean, look at the playoff rotation for the Phillies last year. They had their 2 top guys that were incredible, and then Ranger Suarez, who was kind of hit or miss, and the number 4 guy was yeesh. The Rangers have at least 4 deep in terms of starting pitchers that I'd feel confident in a playoff game. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi, John Gray, Martin Perez, Andrew Heaney, and maybe you switch out Dane Dunning for Martin Perez if you're playing against the Rays, because you don't want to throw out a lefty too often against this Rays lineup, because they're really freaking good against lefties and against righties and against everybody. But still, I think that this is a lot of consternation about one start. There've been a couple of bad starts for Martin. I'm still a believer. We've still seen him have good starts this year. I think that having Jonah Heim behind the plate with his elite framing really kind of unlocked this Martin Perez. And I think it'll just kind of depend on how we're going game to game. But still, if Martin Perez is your worst starter in your starting rotation, this is still a good enough team. The Astros are still 5 games behind the Rangers. They went to the Guardians, a team that is really scuffling. They just can't hit for anything, and they really struggled badly offensively. The top hitter in their lineup from Sunday's game had an OPS of 783, and heading into this weekend, I think the Rangers' worst hitter in that Friday lineup had an OPS of 790 something. That is the difference between the Rangers and the Astros. The Rangers are 5 games ahead of the Astros. The Astros just had to place Yordan Alvarez, who's basically been their only good hitter this year, on the 10-day IL with an oblique strain, and it could be a lot longer than that. And the reason that Jose Altuve was not in the lineup on Sunday is he had a little bit of an oblique tweak. They are not putting him on the IL. He's going to sit, I think, Monday and Tuesday, but he could be going back on the IL. Those oblique injuries, they're no joke. We have seen what an oblique injury can do, even early this year in spring training to Jacob deGrom. But still, the Rangers are in a good place. I know that this one outing by Martin Perez, remember, it is a 162 game season. It was one bad outing. There have been several for Martin, but I think the overall picture with him and with Heaney, to a lesser extent, points you to those 2 guys being solid as your number 3 and 4 in your rotation, or maybe 4 and 5 if you really are a big believer in Dane Dunning, like I think I am turning out to be. This rotation is fine. The bullpen is getting fixed. The offense is still really freaking good, and this team is still one of the best in all of baseball. Maybe not the best after we saw what the Rays can do this weekend, but still, this is a really freaking good team in a really freaking good spot. It was a tough weekend series, but the Rangers showed that they have World Series aspirations. They are not unfounded, and this could be a preview of the ALCS, which would be awesome, because it would also mean that the Astros, for the first time in 7 years, are not in the ALCS. And right now, I'm thinking that's a very, very real possibility for these Texas Rangers. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every day, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy first place Texas Rangers baseball.